guys. I'm Joe Klemczewski, founder of The Diet Doc, co-founder of the National Academy of Metabolic Science, here with Dr. Kori Probst, who is our wellness director and a health psychologist. And how fitting, Kori, that for our 100th episode, this is it, right? 100?
100th, yes.
All right.
Very
We're
exciting.
talking about self-control, discipline, self-regulation,
Yes.
and all of the misunderstandings that those terms carry with them.
Yeah.
And they're just foundational. I mean, they are misunderstood, but there still is a core component of the fact whenever we want to accomplish anything, there has to be some shifting of our priorities, our goals, our behaviors. So you're going to tell us how to do all that today.
I am, in less than 20 minutes.
All right.
So I think the first thing I want to say about self-control is when people say that word, self-control or self-regulation, they don't say it with a smile. They're not like, self-control, self-regulation. It comes with it, this forebodingness, this heaviness, this restrictiveness. And I think that for most people, that's how they're perceiving self-control and self-regulation, which is that it's a process of resistance. And when you think of resistance, it's like a pushing back, or you're moving against something, right? And I kind of look at it a different way. I really view it as this kind of fluid balance between a resisting but an initiating. Because when you resist one thing, you're initiating another. There is inherently in self-regulation, because when we say no to something, right, and our listeners have probably heard this before, when we say no to something, we say yes to other things. So it's almost like the resistance has a buddy named initiation, and they're collaborating together. But self-control, the phrase itself, does not, for most people, conjure this aliveness or sense of energy or vitality around it. It's usually, I need more self-control, or in the group that I'm facilitating with my mindset and motivation coaches right now, the Inner Strengths Challenge, one of our character strengths is self-regulation. So I think it's important for everyone to know you have it. It's already inside of you. Now, it just may mean that you're not deliberately using it as effectively as you could be. You maybe you weren't even conscious that it was an actual capacity that you have. And so now that you know and are aware of that, you can be more conscious about how to use it and where to use it and why you would want to use it, and then just be very deliberate in your life in a way that you aren't currently. But there was an instance that came up in that group that really prompted my desire to talk about self-regulation today. And I would like to read this person's post, because I think it's really going to resonate with everyone, especially as we're navigating holiday parties and lots of food and decadence and richness and consumerism and everything out there in the environment that is telling us what we should do and how we should be and how we should compare ourselves. And so I think it's a real challenge for a lot of people. But are you in, Joe? Can I read? I want to read this comment.
The first thing that comes to my mind, and you may address this in your comment, is you have often said when discussing a character strength or a struggle, you ask a client typically, in what other areas of your life have you demonstrated this well or better than you think you might here? So just to show them that they really do have that capacity, this just may be a more difficult area for them.
Right.
So absolutely, it's going to be a great topic.
Well, and I think too, on to your point, if we're talking character strengths, and we know that the use of them, deliberate use of them, increases our level of engagement in life and sense of meaning and purpose, and even the amount of positive emotions we experience by 18 times, as opposed to just saying, oh, well, that's something that, you know, is there, but that I don't have. Is it not worth it then to begin to deliberately ask ourselves different questions so that we can step into a greater level of capacity? But then I think also to use the strengths that we do use more deliberately, like maybe it's love of learning or curiosity, to bolster the strength that maybe we're not using so effectively. So if I get curious about this strength of self-regulation that I'd like to build, how about I, you know, ask myself these self-reflective questions. So here's what one of the women that we're working with said. She said, one of my biggest holdups is the fear of not being connected. I'm struggling trying to figure out how to stay true to myself and my goals in the moment. I'm going to a Christmas party tomorrow night, and I've told myself, like I have 100 other social gatherings ago, that I will not drink. But my track record shows I will drink because everyone else will be drinking. I can skip the dessert table, I can pass on overeating, but when it comes to the alcohol, she says, I feel I'm going to be missing out on the fun if I don't join in. So how do I go to the party on Saturday night and not have alcohol and not feel like I'm missing out? Anyone out there relating to this sort of struggle? Inherent, I think, in this is self-regulation or self-control. And when we boil that down into a definition, it is quite literally in control from within. And I asked her one question in response, and it was, what will you be missing out on by having the drink? Because she is completely focused, as you heard in her question, about what she will be missing out on if she doesn't have the drink. So what will she be missing out on if she has it? Do you see the difference, Joe, there in that question? Because, as I said before, when we say no to something, we say yes to other things. I want her to key in on everything else that could potentially become very rich and meaningful for her by not having the drink. So here, there are 4 things that are kind of foundational to self-control that I think are important for everyone to know. And part of self-control is being able to identify our emotions and the emotions of others. There's a level of emotional intelligence that goes along with self-control. So part of it is to become very emotionally agile and then behaviorally flexible. And part of that, and this is another component, is adaptability. If we are always thinking that once we set a goal, and that's another one, once we set a goal and we can make a plan that everything is just going to be smooth sailing from here on out, well, we're sticking our heads in the sand. Change is inevitable. And that if there's something you take away from this, remember, change is inevitable. Expect it. We have to learn how to agilely, flexibly, with endurance, roll with that change and become aware of when we're judging the circumstances. Because the circumstances, they don't necessarily dictate our truth. The circumstance is the circumstance. We can't necessarily change the circumstance, but we can shift our perception of the circumstance. And that's what I was asking her to do. Let's flip that question on its head and open up to all the other possibilities that you're not even considering at this point. So 1 is emotional identification and awareness. 2 is adaptability. 3 is goal setting. So I look at goal setting, whereas I think most people look at goal setting as, I'm going to pick a thing that I think I want to accomplish. I look at goal setting, it's like it's not you set it and you leave it. Goal setting is a process. It gives us a level of perspective regarding what we want, and then whether that, because there's going to be a level of effort, whether that effort is going to be worth the sacrifice. It literally puts us in touch with our intentions. And in order to get there, to a place where we're like, what is really important to me? What is meaningful? Because guys, if the goal is going to be a sticky one that you are willing to endure the sacrifice for, it has to be attached to meaning and purpose and values. And that comes from self-awareness. That's number 4 in that foundation of self-control. And self-awareness is, because you hear these words all the time, but I think we can just get bogged down in just the words themselves and don't really understand what they mean. But it's being willing to reflect upon and understand what our tendencies are, what our triggers are, for example, of regrettable action. In listening to her quote, we've seen what she regrets. She pretty much laid it out for us. She knows what her triggers are as well. But then, to your point, Joe, again, part of self-awareness is being able to ask too, how have I achieved difficult things in the past? What did I do? What was involved? Who maybe was involved? So it's really getting at an awareness of what our values are, what creates meaning in our lives, and asking ourselves too, who and how do I want to be, and how do I want to show up, so that we can more adequately reach into and use the capacity of self-control. There is one other thing, though, that was kind of inherent in this whole experience with her. First, she's posting it in a Facebook group, right? It's a community of people. She's asking this question among her peers. So I think, one of the other key elements is social support, community support. Most of us view self-regulation as this solo endeavor, right? It's coming from within. It's intrapersonal. But I don't see it that way either. I think a lot of us can implement a greater level of self-regulation when we have the support of others around us who we care about, who we trust, and who we feel safe around. So she asks this and puts this into the group, and she's first receiving all of this very positive feedback. Wow, you're so brave first to put this out there. Well, that's a character strength, bravery. And then it's, thank you for sharing all of this. We feel exactly the same way. So she's getting this sense that she's not alone in her struggle. There's this sense of common humanity, and that immediately emboldens her. That enlivens her. It gives her now a newfound sense of power and agency, right? So I feel like I'm kind of rambling, Joe. How am I doing here?
Well, the 2 things that have come to my mind as you were explaining that is, number 1, when somebody like her says, I really want to make sure I understand my track record, and this is important for me for connection. That's great reflection. She's already anticipating this is going to be an issue. And so as just a point of housekeeping, she could have said, I'm going to just work it out. I'm going to eat a little less that day. I'm going to train a little harder. I'm going to eat fewer carbs at that meal so I can have the alcohol. She could do all of that, but in a longer term perspective, she's saying, what if I just want to say no to alcohol?
Yes.
Can I even do that? I don't know if I have that ability. And here, Kori, is to answer your question on a deeper level, where I think most people who are not health psychologists like you with decades of experience working with people. When you say something like it has to be attached to a value, there has to be meaning, I know everybody would agree with that statement. They just don't know how to do that. I could say, yes, I have the value of wanting to be leaner and healthier, but I've not done a very good job of that in my life. So how do I connect these behaviors to that value? And I think of my own clients who have struggled with that, and they may start out of the gate doing extremely well. They lose weight. And then when they have struggles, you know, times that may arise that really test that, you know, they can fail. And then they have to ask that question, is it really a value? How do I make it a strong enough value to actually get this integrated into my life?
Well, let me say this, Joe. I think that there is a misconception that if it's tied to a value, that it's going to be easy. That's not true at all. That's saying the environment is perfectly situated around me in order to facilitate the smoothest road path to the goal. That's not going to happen. There are so many environmental and circumstantial triggers. People, places, advertisements, food freaking everywhere, parties, alcohol, you know, all of the things that can be potential triggers, even if it is tied to a value of yours. You know, so let me give you what, after some discussion within the group, she explained, made the difference for her, because she went and she here's what she said. She had a few sips of her husband's, you know, drink, and she had the most amazing time. She didn't have a few beers. She didn't have a few mixed drinks like she typically would. She had a few sips of someone else's drink and said it was awesome. But she said, when I posted what I was going through, when I knew my peers had been through similar situations, and when I could reflect on my yeses and not the ugly no, that resistant no, you can't have that, she said it made a huge difference. Another woman posted and said, I do all the things that, you know, like I have said is as a foundation. I do all those things. I set the goal, I make the plan, and then everything goes to hell in a handbasket. Okay. So this woman said, I totally felt that other person's pain. And I have felt and feel very similarly. She's like, yeah, I get that. But a lightning bolt hit me on, she said, when we were having this discussion, my goal is not to fit into a swimsuit I bought for an upcoming vacation. My goal isn't to weigh a certain number. My goal is to be happy, truly happy. And I didn't realize that until just now. I'm not happy when I don't follow my eating plan. I'm not happy when I tell myself, you are not going to drink at this party, and then I finish off a bottle of wine. I'm happy when I stick to my plans. When I see past this current moment, she said, and into tomorrow. So after shifting my thinking, I've seen a change in my behavior. So it's just been a few days. But she is less looking at something like just F it, she said, and devour the entire bag of pretzels or, you know, chips or the wine. I think I'll be happy if I eat those. She's not approaching it from that perspective anymore. Not thinking anymore like, how many of those can I sneak into my macros? She's changing, literally shifting the way that she words things. That's perception. That's becoming her new reality. And she's not just looking right here. She's looking into, you know, when the party is over, she's saying yes to agency and self-efficacy and energy and aliveness and confidence, right? And at the back end of that, there's probably a leaner body. But if she put that at the front end, that's not strong enough to say no to things around.
Definitely.
The weight?
So,
yeah.
As you know, my brain instantly just views everything in terms of flowcharts and spreadsheets. So as you were discussing this, it really gave me an idea to connect some of those abstract concepts that you're describing into some, not just behaviors, but then what changes, because every time you have a new thought that gives a new behavior, we talked about this the other day, your brain has new capacity for new understanding. It's, synapses and neurons, as they're connecting differently, the more you know, the more you can know. I think that's a direct quote from you the other day. Mm-hmm. And so I think it would be really good in the future on this topic for us to kind of track out steps that happen so that 6 months from now, a year from now, 10 years from now, you really have adopted and become these new values, not just something that you wish you had. But I think that's exactly right, Kori. People think that there is no resistance. It's just going to happen because you made that decision, and you don't have the mental or physical, just biological channeling for that to even happen yet. It's a process.
Yes, I agree with you. It's a process of it's constantly recommitting to something, and recommitting that brings us back to a sense of groundedness and rootedness in who we want to be as the best human being we can be. You always quote Nietzsche, and he said, "He who has a why can bear almost any how." At the foundation, that's what we're discussing. The why is our principles and our values and our morals, and moving beyond just the number, the size, the look, something really superficial and external to something that really emboldens us and empowers us. Because in that quote too, almost any how, like that conveys that the how is going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. Expect adversity, expect circumstances from the environment to get in your face and be like, "Hi, I'm here to challenge you." But I think the difference is, the person that's able to say, to meet that with, "Oh, hi." Well, I was expecting you, rather than, "Oh shit, what am I going to do? I don't know how to do this." And just, you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic we talk about quite a bit, but as I said, it's almost making those abstract thoughts more concrete and plannable for people. I think that's something that we can do. I'm envisioning a pretty solid series just on this topic, Kori.
Awesome.
So thank you, Kori, as always, for your expertise and making this a great 100th episode. And for you guys, thanks for hanging in there this long. We started this summer, I believe, and I told Kori this is just something we have to do to make sure we're getting this kind of information in the hands of everybody. So thank you for liking and sharing, and we're going to look forward to the next 100.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.